Thank you, Marilyn. You did great. So I'm going to read you a little introduction of Reverend J. Willick. Reverend J. Willick, a.k.a. the New Thought Guy, is an ordained minister currently serving as the assistant minister and the arts minister at the Global Truth Center in L.A. He is in charge of producing plays, musicals, and concerts that forward the tenets of New Thought and Science of Mind. Very active in his center, he has been a Board of Trustees member, the former administrator, one of the lead practitioners and youth mentors, and has spoken at many Sunday and Wednesday services. He has also spoken at many New Thought centers throughout Southern California, in the Pacific Northwest, and on the East Coast. Reverend J deeply values Ernest Holmes' tenet to be open at the top, fueling his mission to inspire others to live in their greatness and reveal the awareness of our birthright to love, enjoy, and prosper with, as, and through the divine. We are always blessed and grateful to have Reverend J with us. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Well, I like this step, but I don't know if it's appropriate. That's perfect place for me to trip on it later. So I'll move it here. Perfect. Hello. Hi. Welcome. Good to be back. Don't need that. Thanks. So it's it's aloha, not aloha. But although the Hawaiians were probably around the same time as the scriptures were written, but aloha does work because the meaning of aloha is very close to that. So, yeah, I picked those two. Well, you'll see as I go through my talk why I picked those two instead of one sort of long one, because they have a lot to do with what I want to talk about today. And I love, speaking of Hawaii, the Ho'oponopono that you talked about earlier. Love that prayer, that way to just move out of something that's in the way. When I went 2 years ago, something like that, to Kauai, is where I first learned about the Ho'oponopono, and just magical stuff from a magical place. So I want to start with a little folk tale, a little parable that some of you might have heard before, but you're going to get to hear it again. So it's the parable of the two wolves. So there's a Cherokee elder, and he's teaching his grandchildren about life. And he says to them, "A fight is going on inside of me. It is a terrible fight, and it is between two wolves. One wolf represents fear, anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, pride, and superiority. Lies, lies, lies. The other wolf stands for joy, peace, love, hope, sharing, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, friendship, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, faith, and truth." He looks at his children and he says, the same fight is going on inside of you and every other person too. The grandkids thought about it for a while. They were wide-eyed about this story. And after a few moments, one of them turned to their grandfather and asked, "Well, which wolf will win?" "The one I feed," said the old Cherokee. "The one I feed." Just like in the reading from about what you want to focus on in prosperity, what we want to focus on in all things is what's important. Not what we don't want, what we do want. We may start the discussion in our head with what we don't want, but inevitably what we need to do, especially when we start getting into affirmative prayer, when we start getting into contemplation, meditation about whatever that condition is you're thinking about, what we want to focus on is what we want. Now, usually after telling that story about the Cherokee grandfather, I might ask the congregation rhetorically, what are you feeding your mind? What you feed your mind, of course, is what will soon be mirrored in your experience, right? We all learned that, the law of cause and effect, the law of attraction. That's the way it works. The Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith said, there is a lie that acts like a virus within the mind of humanity. And that lie is, there's not enough to go around. There's a lack and there's limitation and there's just not enough. And that lie has people living in fear, greed, and stinginess. Sound familiar? And those thoughts of fear, greed, stinginess, and lack become their experience. So the world, and each one of us maybe here and there, it seems like we've taken a nightmare pill. So today, I want to talk about the nightmare pill we are purposely feeding, not so much to ourselves, but into the consciousness of race mind. Now, just in case you might be confused about the word race mind, I found Charles Fillmore's definition of race mind in the Revealing Word, and he says that it is the totality of beliefs, thoughts, memories, feelings, and experiences of the race of man and womankind. Man has built into the race mind a consciousness of corruptible flesh instead of the inherent incorruptible substance of God mind. A consciousness of corruptible flesh. Wow. That doesn't sound very good. It doesn't sound very peaceful or loving. But especially lately, and I know you probably hear that every time somebody speaks about something, especially lately, if you turn on the television, if you pick up the newspaper, if there is such a thing anywhere, or you scan social media, you're likely to see a relentless flow, a seemingly continuous barrage of negativity. And it seems to be more and more in this last year or so. I know it's out there all the time. I know most of the news we read is negative. Something happened that's not great. But there seems to be a lot more in the last year or so, and it seems to be flooding the race mind with a huge sense of fear and helplessness. People are feeling helpless, and it's causing the masses to see the world as only a dark, dangerous, and cruel place. Are you finding that now and again while you're looking at things? Oh my gosh, how do I keep positive? How do I keep affirming the divine with all this junk coming at me? As they say today, it's feeling pretty cray-cray out there. Do you know what I mean by that? Cray-cray, crazy. I'm with you there. I'm not a big newspaper reader. I get my news maybe on the radio or on the internet. But it's so much. There's just so much negativity. You feel like you want to go back to the old days when all we're complaining about is the economy, instead of all this happening. There's these hate groups showing up again, running around, calling it a peaceful rally when they're carrying weapons with them. I'm not sure how that matches. Having a weapon on you, which of course is totally legal in most states, as far as carrying it on you. But how do you equate going somewhere insinuating you're having a peaceful rally with a weapon that mostly is used for destruction with you. I don't understand how that comes together. And also we're hearing a lot, and we've heard a lot in years before, but we're hearing a lot about people wanting to rip down the statues of Confederate celebrities. Because they're celebrities. They're celebrities of the Confederacy from whenever that was, 150 or more years ago. And I'm not against that. I'm not against the idea of taking those down. But I'm very worried that we're not doing it out of love. I'm worried that we're doing it from hate, of hate. You understand what I'm saying? That we're trying to, in this instance that I'm talking about, take down these Confederate statues through hate, not through the love of something. We're focusing on the hate, that those statues represent hate. And I'm not saying that there isn't dark, dangerous, and cruel places and people in the world. Of course there are. That's one of the, it's sort of like the First Amendment. You know, you want to be good with the First Amendment that everyone can say what the government can't stop you from saying what you feel. Well, with that comes hate speech too. So we have to take the not so great with the wonderful. So too with people in the world. But what is our answer? What is our reaction going to be to these things and to these people? More hate? Or are we going to focus on love? So simple to focus on the hating of the hate or hating of the haters. So simple to do that. Martin Luther King said, the year I was born, hate begets hate. Violence begets violence. Toughness begets a greater toughness, and thus wars. We must meet the forces of hate with the power of love. Now, I think it was last week, I heard Andrew Young on the radio. Now, Andrew Young was the former mayor of Atlanta and a lifelong African-American civil rights activist from the 60s on. Big activist. And he said on NPR that the Stone Mountain carving, now that's this carving in northern Georgia, and it's actually kind of a beautiful carving. It's a sort of a Confederate Mount Rushmore. It has Stonewall Jackson, Robert E. Lee, and Jefferson Davis on this plaque, this stone plaque. And he said, totally interesting, it should stay. Here's it matters not how beautifully carved out of the stone it was. Here's three guys who represent what we say now is a hate, by all means, that they fought for this hate. And he's saying it should stay. Now, he also served as a congressman from Georgia and an ambassador to the United Nations. And this man, Andrew Young, was with Martin Luther King Jr. the day he was assassinated, as well as many days before that. This is a guy with some cred here, saying this should stay. And what he was meaning by that is that our eye, being focused so much on these Confederate statues and things like that, is on the wrong ball here. It's a reaction, not an action. And he tells this story. From 4 years old, I was always taught, my father used to tap me in the face to try to get me upset. My sisters used to do that on my shoulder, just to see what I would do. That's so interesting. It just came to me. I just remembered that. So his father was tapping him on his face, trying to get him upset. And if I swung back at him, Andrew Young says, he would slap me upside my head. He said, see, if you start getting emotional in a fight, you're going to lose the fight. Don't get mad get smart. And that's been serving me well, says Andrew Young. And it served me walking in the midst of the Klan alone at night, without a gun, without police protection. And the only reason I did it was because the only ones that were courageous enough to go there with me and who insisted that I go were women and children. Interestingly enough, the braver. The men, you know, hide behind militant solutions. But we have to keep our eyes on the prize. And the prize is not vengeance, not getting even. The prize is redemption. It's not about the haters. It's about why they became haters. We have to save ourselves from extending the hate and fear and desperation the haters have by not vibrating with more hate and fear, as tempting as it is. We have to think smart. We have to think truth. We have to think the power of love. What we need most, with all due respect to the people in Texas going through their weather conditions, we need a tidal wave, a tornado, a hurricane, a tsunami, you may say, of what Charles Fillmore said in the second half of that quote. The inherent, incorruptible substance of God mind. The inherent, incorruptible substance of God mind. The great truth which transcends the sense of separation that is creating and feeding this nightmare of hate. It's just a sense of separation. The haters feel separated. The non-haters, let's call ourselves, feel separated. What we need is a pill to combat this dis-ease in the consciousness of the planet and its people. Now, it's funny, I was looking that up, and there actually is one being developed. It's called Tolcapone. And what Tolcapone, I'm not advocating taking Tolcapone, but what Tolcapone does, it changes the chemical balance in the brain's prefrontal cortex, which is the area that impacts personality, social behavior, and decision-making. So it artificially produces feelings of kindness. And because it's zapping more dopamine. It's zapping that chemical dopamine using some enzyme in the pill to zap the dopamine to make you feel nice. And if you feel nice, you want to be nice. It's the feel-good chemical of the brain. So that's maybe a new way that, again, I'm not advocating, that you could have a pill to stop feeding this nightmare of hate and disappointment and fear. Or you could use the old ways, which still work. Again, Charles Fillmore, from his book, The 12 Powers of Man, he said, the beliefs that you and your ancestors have held in mind has become thought currents so strong that their course in you can be changed only by your resolute decision to entertain them no longer. They will not be turned out unless the ego, not necessarily his definition, my definition of ego in this particular instance, is edging God out. They will not be turned out unless the ego, through whose domain they run, decides positively to adopt means of casting them out of his or her consciousness, and at the same time erects gates that will prevent their inflow from external sources. This is done by denial and affirmation. The denial always comes first. Now, we're not talking about denial that you put on rose-colored glasses or little things like they do on the horses at the horse race so that I don't see the negativity, I'm not looking. It's not that. It's not that kind of denial. what we're denying is its power over us. You get what I'm saying? We're denying the power of the hate. That doesn't mean we're ignoring the hate. That doesn't mean we're not taking action about the hate. But we're denying its power over us. So that if we do take action, or when we do take action, whatever that is, whether it's a physical action or primarily a spiritual action, we're taking it from love, not from hate. So once again, I think, similar to the 60s, humanity is at a critical juncture. We cannot allow ourselves to be deluded by this nightmare that seems to be going on. It is time for those of us who are conscious, awake, and aware people, and that's all of you. That's all of these people who come Sunday, wherever they do, to step into the divine purposefully and in a community. Those who are conscious, awake, and aware, it is time for all of us to claim the truth that is superior to the condition. Again, claiming the truth that is superior to the condition doesn't mean you're ignoring what's going on. Doesn't mean you're not taking action to what's going on. It's the power from which, the attitude from which, the perspective from which you are taking that action. We are being called as metaphysicians to remember and live from the truth of wholeness, love, and peace. We're not running around singing Kumbaya and everything is love and putting flowers in the ends of guns. That's not what I'm talking about. Because as wonderful as that was and meaningful as that was, a lot of times there was this going on too, as far as the 60s go. Each one of us is being called to be the change we want to see in the world. It's not going to start out there. It's going to start here and from which perspective we act or speak about this nightmare. In Matthew 7:7 it says, "Ask and it is given, seek and you shall find, knock and it will be opened to you." Principle, knowing that the law of cause and effect brings into our experiences that which we believe, that which we develop in belief through our thoughts and feelings. Principle tells us that as we look for kindness, we will find it. As we embody and share kindness, it will grow and spread, dispelling the darkness. If we wish to see more love, compassion, and kindness in the world, we must be the embodiment of that. We must embody love, compassion. That's a tough one. I'm not saying this is easy and you're going to go out there and boom, it's gone. But you can do that if you believe it. Because compassion for the haters, compassion for the nightmare can be a challenge. And that's okay. It's okay that it's a challenge. It's what you do with that challenge. Margaret Mead said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. The government's not going to change it. Who we vote for is not going to change it. I don't care how powerful they think they are. I don't care what button they have the finger on or the codes that they have in any part of the world. They're not the changers. Each one of us are the changers." Again, if you're feeling overwhelmed when you read all this stuff, and it's hard, you want to stay informed of what's going on in the world, so you're going to read it, you're going to hear about it, or at the very least you're going to hear about it because other people are going to be talking about it, even if you don't want to read about it. And you can get overwhelming. There's so much hate going on that you're hearing about, you may say. Well, let me remind you of the example of a glass of dirty water. If you take a glass of dirty water and you take a hose of clean water and you put that hose in the glass of dirty water, turn that faucet on, pretty soon that dirty water will be clean water. So the dirty water of hate and lack and depression and separatism, it's filled with the hose of love, positivity, truth, knowing that the divine is with me and behind me, and I am focusing on love and compassion and kindness. And pretty soon, this glass will be not a glass of hate, but a glass of love. As conscious, creative, spiritual beings, we need to heed the call to recognize and live from our higher nature. That's going to take a little time for some people. Could be a moment, it could be several moments. That's okay. The fact that any of us is stepping into the higher nature is what's important. And even in special times, which this sort of nightmare could be called a special time, when circumstances make it hard to remember the truth of our being, we must step in. We must remember who we are. We must remember the namaste. Easy to go around in this room or in your community of friends and say namaste, because your community of friends are nice people, at least most of the time. Try doing namaste in the middle of haters, because you have to believe that namaste to you, you, and all of you is the same thing as the namaste of those haters or people you don't like much. Or else the word namaste has no meaning. The Christ in you, the God in you, the divine in you is also in these negative people. They may not know it or remember it. They may have dug a hole and are hiding it, but you have to know it. It's in there. Ernest Holmes, who wrote The Science of Mind, as you know, I'm from the Science of Mind end of New Thought. He wrote, "We must not be disturbed by the contradiction of objective experience. We shall have to know that the truth we announce is superior to the condition which it is changing. We shall have to see that God in us recognizes the God in another person until the God in the other person recognizes the God in us." I'm not saying you condone the haters. I'm not saying that you walk next to them while they're doing their hater stuff. But we have to know in our spirit, in our hearts, that they're an individualization of God too, to the degree that eventually they'll get it. In moments when the world seems cruel, it is incumbent on us to be kind and express the divine within so that others may see themselves reflected in us. Just like the law of cause and effect is a reflection of your beliefs that becomes your experiences. When we reflect who and what we divinely are to the haters, they'll eventually get it. So we need to stand for compassion and kindness, be encouraged by the knowledge that kindness is contagious. It's a disease, to use a disease, not a dis-ease, but a disease that we want to spread. Or better yet, a virus that we want to spread. We want to be aware and don't allow ourselves to fall for the delusion of hate. We want to be on the lookout for any kindness that comes around. Sometimes that's what we need. It's like that idea that, you wake up in the morning and be grateful, and if you're going to a job that you hate and for whatever reason you don't have enough money to pay a bill, or you don't like your spouse anymore, there's other things to be grateful for. And if you have to start with the fact that you woke up, that you're breathing, that your eyes work, that you can hear, chirpy, chirpy, start there. Start there. And the same thing with kindness. Kindness could be just a little something. A penny on the ground is a kindness from the universe. Be kind yourselves. It's good for the body, mind, and spirit. That could be a whole talk in itself. What kindness, what that heartfelt divinity walking around that way, what it does to your body, mind, and spirit. Spread kindness. Share a dumb little story, if it's a dumb little story, about something kind. There's a great little video that I saw that somebody cleverly made somewhere on YouTube. I don't remember what it's called, so but you might be able to find it. And somebody, in one shot, so it was they were following these people with a camera, and obviously it was set up. It wasn't real. It was just showing the idea that kindness can inspire kindness. They created this whole story with 5-ish people, all within one block. Guy drops something, and somebody, oh, you dropped this, and things like that. And then that guy, the construction guy, sees somebody else who needs help, and somebody who's sitting on the ground who's supposedly homeless. The guy that the construction guy helped noticed him while he was getting a hot dog and bought 2 and gave the guy 1, and it went on for like 5 or 6 people. It's really beautiful, and it's all in one shot, just showing what a little thing can do to 5 or 6 people within one block, within not even 5 minutes. So share stories of kindness and thereby contribute to a positive contagion that will create a world that works for all. Kindness and compassion, love and peace is a virus we can live with. It's a virus we can thrive with. Join me in going out there and giving some. Pass the virus of compassion and love from your heart, from that divine energy that illuminates each and every one of us, whether we hide it or not. None of you are hiding it. So you get to go out there and share it. Thank you so much. Namaste.